Milo was not a hero or a warrior, he was a simple space technician who worked on a trade station. Near the planet Thaler, his job was to fix broken wires, clean dusty panels, and make sure communication systems worked without trouble. He liked his quiet life between stars and machines. Some morning while Milo was checking a signal relay, he saw something strange on his monitor. A glowing symbol appeared. It was not one of the usual system messages. This one was in golden letters and had a royal seal from Thaler. Milo frowned and tapped the screen. It opened a message written in many languages, including Earth's standard language. It read, "You are warmly invited to the royal wedding of Princess Lyria of Thaler and Lord Tellan of House Vorn. Guests from all allied species are welcome to attend. Ceremony will begin on the third moon cycle in the royal garden of Crystal Sky City." Milo blinked. He had never been invited to anything royal before. He looked around the small control room as if someone was playing a trick on him, but no one else was there. He checked the details. The invitation was real. It had a list of approved species, and humans were on it. Earth had recently joined the Thalorian Alliance, which meant people from Earth could join events like this if invited. But why me? Milo said to himself. He was not rich or important. He had never even been to Thaler. Still, the message said any guest from allied worlds was welcome. He was curious, very curious, sat back in his chair and thought maybe it was a mistake, maybe not, maybe this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to see something amazing. After work, he went to his small room on the station and looked in his closet. He had one clean dark blue suit left from his training days. It was a little tight, but still fit. Next morning, he sent a reply through the proper channel stating he would attend. He did not expect a response, but within hours he got a transport code and a landing permit. The message even said a guest room had been prepared. Milo stared at the screen, his heart beat faster. He was really going. Packed his things and boarded a small shuttle headed to Thaler. The journey took less than a day thanks to the fast transport lanes. When he arrived on Thaler, the first thing he noticed was the sky. It shimmered in soft colors like water and light mixed together. The city below was made of tall crystal towers that caught the light and reflected rainbows. Stepped off the shuttle and was greeted by a small flying robot. It floated near him and spoke in a clear voice. "Welcome, honored guests. Please follow me." Milo followed the robot through wide halls and glowing walkways. Everywhere he looked, he saw creatures from different planets. Some had wings, some had smooth scales, others had eyes like bright gems. They all wore colorful robes and seemed excited for the wedding. Milo felt out of place, but no one looked at him strangely. The guests were all treated the same. The robot led him to a round room with soft lights and a large window. The view showed the royal garden where the wedding would take place. Trees with silver leaves and flowers made of light swayed gently. In the window placed his small bag down and looked around. The room had everything he needed, even a snack tray with fruits. He had never seen Lyra. That evening he received a message from the palace reminding him of the schedule. The wedding would start at the next sunrise and all guests should wear formal clothes and bring a token of goodwill for the blessing bowl. Milo looked at the message again. Bring a token. He did not bring anything special. Then he remembered something, reached into his bag and pulled out a small charm made of old space metal. It was a gift from his sister before he left Earth, a simple piece shaped like a star with a tiny blue gem in the center. It was not expensive, but it was meaningful. Smiled and placed it in his pocket. Next morning, the palace sent flying carriages to pick up the guests. Milo stepped into one and was carried through the air to the royal garden. It was even more beautiful than he had seen from the window. The trees formed a natural arch around a glowing platform made of crystal water. Hundreds of guests stood in circles around the platform. Musicians played soft notes that sounded like wind and light mixed together. Then came the main moment. Trumpets made of light sounded, and the royal family walked, and leading the bride, Princess Lyria, walked with calm steps. Her dress shimmered with soft colors and tiny lights. Her eyes were deep green, like forest leaves. Her face was calm but strong. She looked around the crowd with interest. Milo watched quietly, trying not to draw attention. He stood near the edge, holding his charm in his hand. Then came the part of the ceremony where each guest stepped forward and placed their token in the bowl of blessing. The bowl stood in the center of the platform, glowing with soft blue light. One by one, guests walked forward and dropped their tokens into the bowl. Small sparks flew out each time when It was Milo's turn. He walked forward slowly. He looked at the bowl, then at the princess and king, who stood nearby. He did not want to look foolish. He simply placed the charm into the bowl and stepped back, but this time, something strange happened. The bowl glowed brighter than before. The blue light turned golden for a second. A gentle sound, like a bell, rang in the air. The crowd gasped softly. Milo stood frozen. Did he do something wrong? The king leaned forward. With a puzzled look, the princess looked at the bowl, then at Milo. Her eyes held curiosity and something else he could not know. Milo felt a chill on his back. He did not understand the meaning, but he knew something had changed. He had turned to return to his place. But the royal guard stepped forward and gently stopped him. Please remain near the platform, the guard said politely. Milo nodded slowly. The ceremony continued, but Milo could feel eyes on him. He felt like he had stepped into something bigger than he understood. As the sun rose higher and the music played on, Milo began to wonder what his little charm had truly done and what this strange glowing bowl had chosen. Milo stood near the glowing platform, not knowing what to do. The golden light from the blessing bowl still shimmered gently as the other guests returned to their places. The soft music continued, but now there was a quiet buzz of whispers moving through the crowd. The king and princess had noticed it, the sudden glow, the strange sound, the unusual spark. Milo looked down at the bowl, but the charm he placed was already gone. It had melted into the light like the others, but the effect it caused was different. Princess Lyri's eyes stayed on Milo for a long moment. She did not smile or frown. Her expression was calm, but curious, like someone trying to solve a puzzle. Ceremony moved on. The high priest stepped forward and spoke in the Florian tongue, then switched to the Alliance language so all guests could understand. Let the joining of houses be known. Let the blessing bowl choose its path. Let the future be accepted with open hearts. He raised his hands and light flowed around the bride and the groom. The crowd cheered softly and the air filled with sweet perfume from the garden trees. The original groom, Lord Talon, walked forward to stand beside Lyri. But as he reached the platform, he paused. The priest turned to the king and bowed. My king, he said, the bowl has chosen another signal. The bond has changed. King Tovin rose slowly from his seat. His long robe moved like liquid crystal. His voice was strong but gentle. Let the chosen step forward and be seen by all. The guards turned to Milo and gave a small respectful gesture. Milo's heart pounded. He had no idea what was happening. He looked around for someone to explain, but everyone stared at him, waiting. He walked forward slowly, unsure of what he would say or do. The crowd opened a path and he stepped onto the platform again beside Lyri. And Talon looked surprised but did not speak. The priest raised his hands again. The light of the bowl has chosen the token of this guest by fate or ancient rule. The bond must be honored. Milo blinked. Wait, I think there is a mistake. I am not part of this. I only came as a guest. I did not mean anything by placing that charm. The priest looked at him kindly. The bowl does not choose by mistake. It only responds to truth of heart and spirit. Milo turned to the king. Your Majesty, I did not understand the meaning of the ritual. I only gave a small charm from Earth. It was a gift from my sister. It was never meant as a bond. The king nodded slowly. Yet the bowl glowed brighter than ever before. That is not something we can ignore. Princess Lyri spoke for the first time. Her voice was clear and calm. Let us ask the bowl again. If the bond is real, the light will return. If not, then we will know the truth. Everyone agreed. Milo stepped back, and the priest asked him to place his hand over the bowl once more, and Milo hesitated, but then slowly raised his hand. The bowl began to glow again, this time with a steady gold light, not sharp, not loud, just calm, and warm gasps filled the garden. Even Talon stepped back in surprise. The priest bowed his head. It is clear the bond is accepted. Milo was frozen. He had only come to see a royal wedding, and now he stood at the center of it as a chosen bond. He looked at Lyri, who studied him with interest, not fear, not anger, just quiet thought. And turned to the king and bowed. If the bond has changed, then I step away with honor. I ask only that my house be respected. The king nodded. Your house will always be respected. Talon, you have shown great strength and dignity today. Talon bowed again and left the platform. Milo wanted to say something, but no words came. His heart was full of questions and his hands were shaking. The priest turned to the crowd. By light and truth, by bond and spirit, we welcome the new unity between Princess Lyri and guest Milo of Earth. The guests clapped politely. but many still looked confused. Milo felt their eyes on him. Some were curious, some surprised, a few even looked concerned after the ceremony. The king invited the guests to the banquet hall made of clear crystal walls and soft glowing floors. The tables were filled with food from many planets, bowls of glowing fruit, plates with floating spices, and drinks that sparkled in the air. Milo was given a seat near the king, and the prince's servants brought him a dish of green rolls. With soft mist coming from them, he picked one up and took a small bite. It tasted like sweet leaves and soft honey. King Tovin raised his cup and smiled. Milo of Earth, you have found yourself in a strange place, but sometimes the stars choose paths we do not understand, yet still must follow. Milo nodded slowly. I do not wish to cause trouble, Your Majesty. I came here only as a guest. I am honored, but also confused. Princess Lyri spoke next. You are not blamed, Milo. The bond was not forced. It came through the ritual. You gave a gift from the heart, and the bowl responded. That has not happened in 100 years. Milo looked at her. Are you not upset I interrupted your ceremony, your life? Lyri paused. I do not feel upset, only surprised. Perhaps this is a chance for something new. The king smiled at his daughter's wise words. Lyri, as always, the music played, and guests danced in soft circles. Some came to speak with Milo, asking questions about Earth and the charm he had offered. Others simply nodded and moved on. Milo stayed close to the table, trying not to draw too much attention. A servant brought him a new drink with floating blueberries inside. He took a sip and felt a soft warmth in his chest. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, the king asked Milo to walk with him in the garden. They walked under glowing trees as soft lights floated in the air like stars. My daughter is strong and thoughtful, the king said. She has seen many suitors, but the bond bowl has never chosen one before, not like this. Milo looked at the flowers glowing in the dark. I do not feel worthy. I'm just a worker from a trade station. I have no titles, no lands, no power. The king stopped and looked at him. True strength is not always loud. True worth is not always known at first sight. The bowl sees what we do not. Milo nodded slowly, unsure of what would come next. The king placed a hand on his shoulder. Stay for now, learn our ways, spend time with Lyri. If the bond is not right, we will find a peaceful path, but if it grows, we will welcome it fully. Milo looked up at the alien sky filled with soft green stars and nodded. I will try. And so the guest who came to see a wedding now found himself part of it in a way no one expected. Milo woke up the next morning in a room filled with soft lights and quiet music. The walls were smooth and glowing like crystal water. The bed was wide and comfortable. A floating screen near the window showed the garden outside. Birds with wings like silk flew between tall silver trees. Sat up slowly, still not sure if all of yesterday had been real. The ceremony, the bowl, the glow, the announcement. He was still wearing the sash the royal guard had given him, a simple band of cloth with a golden star sewn into the middle. A quiet knock came at the door before Milo could answer. A small round robot floated in and greeted him. Good morning, honored guest. Your presence is requested at the royal hall in 1 hour. Please wear the formal sash provided to you. Milo nodded. All right, I will be ready after a quick wash and a light meal of fruit and warm bread. Milo dressed and followed the robot through long halls. Every wall shimmered with soft light and colors that changed with every step. At the end of the hall, large crystal doors opened. The royal hall was wide with high ceilings shaped like open hands. Light poured in through windows shaped like stars. The king sat at the center on a simple silver chair. Princess Lyri stood beside him, dressed in her royal robes. Her long hair was tied with green and gold threads. Guards stood along the sides, but they did not look angry or cold. They simply watched with calm eyes. Many important guests sat in rows facing the king. These were leaders from other planets, high lords of Thaler, and a few scholars who studied royal customs. Milo was led to a place near the front where he stood alone. Everyone turned to look at him. He felt his hands tremble, but he tried to stand. Talking Tovin raised one hand, and silence filled the room. Yesterday, during the sacred ceremony, the blessing bowl chose a new bond. A guest from a distant world was called by the light. This guest is named Milo of Earth. Milo felt all eyes on him. Some faces looked surprised, others curious, a few seemed unsure. The king continued. This has not happened in 100 years, but the law is clear. If the bowl glows golden during the offering, the bond is true and must be honored. One of the lords stood up. He wore dark robes and had sharp features. His name was Lord Siren. Milo remembered seeing him during the wedding. He had not clapped during the announcement. With respect, Your Majesty, Lord Siren said, we do not question the bowl's glow, but we must question its meaning. This guest did not know our customs. He did not understand the ritual. How can a bond be true when it was made by mistake? The room murmured softly. Princess Lyri stepped forward. Her voice was calm. I too wondered about this, but I stood near the bowl. I saw the light. I felt its warmth. The bond was not weak or confused. It was strong and sure. Lord Siren did not sit. But if bonds can be made by accident, what does that say about our sacred ways? What if others now come and try to force bonds without meaning, without honor? King Tovin raised his hand again. Enough, Lord Siren, we have heard your concern, but the bowl does not glow for those who are false. It cannot be forced. It has its own mind. The priest who had led the ceremony stepped forward. Long ago, the bowl was built by our first Starwalkers. It reads not only the gift, but the spirit behind it. If Milo placed his charm without pride or greed, then the bowl saw his truth. That is enough for it to act. Lord Siren slowly sat, but his eyes remained on Milo. They were sharp and thoughtful. The king looked at Milo now. We do not wish to trap anyone in a life they did not ask for, so I ask you plainly, Milo of Earth, do you wish to accept the bond that the bowl has shown? Do you choose to walk this path with my daughter, not as a burden, but as a partner? Milo took a deep breath. He looked around at all the faces watching, then looked at Lyri. Her eyes were steady and calm. She did not look afraid or upset. She waited for his answer without pressure. He spoke clearly. I did not plan for this. I came only to see something beautiful, but when I placed my charm in the bowl, I thought of someone I loved and missed, someone who always believed in kindness and truth. I did not know your ways, but I meant no harm. If this bond is real, then I will not run from it. I will honor it as best as I can. There was silence. Then the king stood and placed his hand over his heart. Then let it be known the bond is accepted by both light and word. From this day forward, Milo of Earth shall be part of the royal house of Thaler. His journey has just begun, but his path is now tied to ours. The hall echoed with soft claps and music. A few still looked uncertain, but the choice was made. After the ceremony, the royal family invited Milo to stay in the palace, not as a guest, but as a future part of the house. He was given new robes and a larger room with windows facing the mountains. Princess Lyri visited him later that day. They sat on a quiet balcony, drinking warm tea made from star leaves. You spoke well in the hall, Lyri said. You were honest. That matters more than fine words. Milo smiled slightly. I hope I did not embarrass you. I still feel like I'm dreaming. Lyri looked at the sky. Dreams can feel strange at first, but sometimes they lead to better places. They sat in silence for a moment, watching a glowing bird land on a branch nearby. Its feathers shimmered like glass. Milo turned to her. Do you really believe in the bond, the bold choosing, I mean? She nodded. I do. I may not understand everything, but I trust our ways. And I trust what I feel when I look at you. I do not feel fear. I feel curiosity and peace that is rare in our world. Later that night, in another part of the palace, Lord Siren walked through a shadowed hallway. He stopped at a small door and knocked. A voice from inside answered. Enter. Inside the room, another noble sat reading a map of the star. Siren closed the door. The bowl chose the human. We must watch him closely. If this bond is real, it may change the future of the throne. The other noble looked up. Then we must be ready to act if it does. And so while Milo began to learn the ways of Thaler, others began to plan in the dark. The story was no longer about a simple wedding. It was now about trust, power, and the strange path of fate that had joined to very different worlds. Milo now lived inside the royal palace of Thaler. The shining walls, the floating lights, and the soft music made every day feel like a dream, but deep inside he knew it was not just a dream anymore. It was real. He had become part of something bigger than himself. Every morning he walked through the halls with a guide and learned about Thalorian history, customs, and language. His teacher was a kind elder named Tira, who had studied many worlds. She showed him how to greet nobles, how to use polite words, and how to understand ancient stories written in glowing symbols. Princess Lyri joined some lessons. She sat beside him, listening carefully, and sometimes helped explain things in simpler ways. Milo began to enjoy her company. She asked questions about Earth, about its sky, and its ocean. She liked hearing about trees that change color in autumn and stars that could not be seen from Thaler own evening as they walked in the moon garden. Milo pointed at the sky. On Earth we only have one moon. Here you have three, he said with a smile. Leary looked up. They guide our calendars. Each moon brings a different season. The third moon is said to be lucky for new beginnings. Milo nodded slowly. Maybe. That's why I ended up here. Leary turned to him. Do you regret it? He thought for a moment, then shook his head. No, just surprised, still learning. Still finding my place. Leary smiled gently. That is all any of us are doing. But not everyone in the palace was pleased. Lord Siren, who had once hoped to grow his power through the original royal wedding, was now watching from the shadows. He spent his days in dark rooms whispering with others who felt the same. They did not trust the bond between Leary and Milo. They believed it was a mistake, or worse, a threat. Own night, Lord Siren met with three nobles in a quiet corner of the lower palace. This union is not tradition, Siren said. The bowl may have glowed, but we cannot allow a stranger to take root in the heart of our rule. He is untested. He is weak. He is not one of us. One of the nobles asked, what will you do? Siren's eyes narrowed. We will test him, and when he fails, we will show the court that the bomb was false. The next day, trouble began to stir. During the morning meal, Milo was served a dish with golden seeds shaped like tiny stars. A palace cook told him they were a sign of honor. Milo smiled and ate them, but within minutes he felt dizzy and lightheaded. A healer rushed to check on him and gave him a soft green drink to clear the poison. You were given the wrong dish, the healer said. These seeds are not for your kind. They can harm human blood. Milo rested for the day, but the event made the court uneasy. Whispers began. Some said he was too weak for royal life. Others said the mistake was not truly a mistake. Princess Leary stayed by his side. This should not have happened, she said quietly. We will find out who did this. Milo sat up. I did not want to blame anyone without proof, but I feel like someone is watching me every time I walk the halls. That night, Leary met with her father and the head guard. They agreed to increase protection and watch for signs of secret plans. The next morning, a new test comma Milo was invited to attend the council meeting. In the Star Chamber, it was a place where important matters were discussed. Lost trade routes, new missions into space. Milo had never seen anything like it. Sat beside Leary, listening to the talks about borders and harvest cycles. Lord Siren spoke up. There's one more matter. We have a system in the south where old towers need repair. It is dangerous, but important. Perhaps the new member of our royal house would like to visit it and see how we protect our world. Some council members looked unsure. Others nodded. Slow liking. Tovin raised his eyes. Is this a task or a test? Siren bowed slightly. A chance, a gesture of learning and service. Leary looked at Milo and gave a small nod. Milo stood and said, if I can help, I will. I am not a leader or a soldier, but I do know how to fix things. I worked on a trade station for years. Maybe my skills will be useful. The king agreed, and the plan was made. Milo would visit the southern system with a small team of engineers and guards. Before he left, Leary gave him a small round stone. This is a whisper stone, she said. Hold it and speak. If you are in danger, I will hear it. Milo smiled and placed it in his jacket. The journey to the southern towers was quiet. The land was wide and rocky, with winds that sang through the cliffs. The towers were old, tall, and cracked in places, but still strong. Milo walked among the workers and studied the systems. He found several broken power lines and helped fix the circuits using tools from his station days. The workers were surprised at how much he knew. One even said, you work like a Thalurian, born under the moon of craft. Milo laughed. I just learned from a good old engineer on Earth named Ben. He said, never leave a wire hanging loose. But one night while checking the signal lines, Milo saw something strange in the hills. A small flash of metal, then silence, alerted the guards. They searched the area and found a hidden device buried under rocks. It was meant to cut power to the towers during storm season. Simeon had placed it there on purpose. The guards brought the device back to the palace for study. The symbols on the side matched the mark of an old house, one that supported Lord Siren. The king was not pleased. This goes beyond mistake or concern, he said. This is danger and betrayal. Siren did not deny the symbols, but claimed he had no part in the act. Council began an investigation, but tension had ground. Meanwhile, Milo returned to the palace with more confidence. He had faced a test and had not failed. Leary met him in the garden. You found the device. You help the workers. They speak well of you now. Milo smiled. I just did what I knew how to do fix broken things. She looked at him. Some things are harder to fix than others. He nodded, but not impossible, and so trouble continued to move through the palace. But so did trust and slow friendship. The bond between Milo and Leary was no longer just a result of light and ritual. It was beginning to grow through real moments, through truth and quiet strength. Battle for the throne had not started with swords, but with doubt and silence, and now the stranger from Earth had become more than just a guest. He had become part of the story. The palace was quiet as the night grew deep. The stars above Thaler glowed softly in shades of green and gold. The moons floated peacefully across the sky. It seemed like a perfect night. But in the shadows, trouble was moving. Milo had returned from the southern towers only 2 days ago. He was tired but proud of what he had done. The workers respected him. The king had thanked him in front of the council, and Leary had smiled at him in a way that felt real, not just formal. Still, something did not feel right that evening. Milo could not sleep. He sat by the window of his chamber, watching the moons. He turned the whisper stone Leary had given him in his hand, just thinking about everything that had changed in his life. Was no longer just a guest. He was part of something larger, something more dangerous than he first understood. Suddenly, the whisper stone grew warm in his hand. A soft light blinked from its center. Milo stood at once. Something was wrong. Then he heard it, a low sound like wind moving too fast. Then the crash of glass breaking somewhere nearby. Rushed to the door, but before he could open it, two guards entered quickly. Stay closer, one of them said. The palace is under attack. Milo's heart jumped. Who is attacking them? Guard replied, unknown. Masked fighters have entered from the north gate. They move fast and aim for the royal quarters. Leary, Milo whispered. Without waiting, he followed the guards through the hall. The palace was no longer silent. Alarm bells rang. Lights turned red and blue. Doors closed with heavy locks. Servants hid inside rooms. Guards ran with weapons made of glowing steel. As Milo turned a corner, he saw a group of black-cloaked figures trying to break open a silver door. The guards beside him shouted and charged. A short fight broke out. Blades clashed, sparks flew. Milo ducked behind a wall and picked up a tool from a broken shelf, a metal rod with sharp ends. He was not a soldier, but he would not stand still. One of the masked attackers turned toward him. Milo held the rod in both hands. The attacker rushed but slipped on broken glass. Milo hit the figure on the back with the rod, and the attacker fell silent. Guards nodded at him. Stay low and follow us. They reached the royal chamber where Princess Leary had taken shelter. The guard stood outside the door. Leary opened it. When she heard Milo's voice, you came, she said with relief. I had to, Milo replied, breathing hard. What is happening? Who are these people? I think I know, Leary said. Her eyes were steady. This is not a random attack. Someone planned this to take me or harm the king. Milo looked around. Then we cannot stay here. They know this place. Leary nodded. There is an old passage through the lower hall. It leads to the crystal vault. No one uses it anymore, but I remember the way. The guards agreed. The group moved quickly through the dark halls, using side doors and hidden stairs. They passed old statues and closed rooms filled with ancient lights. Milo stayed close to Leary. Every time they heard steps or saw a shadow, he felt a wave of fear. But Leary moved calmly, leading the way with quiet strength. He reached the lower hall and found the secret passage behind a painting. The door opened with a soft click, and they stepped into a narrow path lined with glowing moss. The tunnel was quiet but cold. Their steps echoed softly. We must tell your father, Milo said. Leary nodded. If we reach the vault, we can send a signal from the old tower inside. It still connects to the palace core. Suddenly a sound echoed behind them. The guards turned, blades ready. More masked figures had found the passage. Run, one guard said. We will hold them. Milo and Leary ran through the tunnel ahead. The light grew brighter as they neared the vault. At the end of the tunnel, a wide round door waited. Leary placed her hand on the stone beside it. The door opened with a slow turn, and they stepped inside. The vault was made of crystal walls with silver lines running across them. In the center stood an old tower filled with wires and glowing panels. Leary ran to the panel and began pressing symbols. Milo joined her and connected loose wires using what he had learned on the trade station. The panel lit up. A soft voice spoke from the system's signal. Ready. What is your command? Leary spoke clearly. Emergency code 12. Lock all royal gates. Activate defense field. Round throne hall. Confirm location of the king. The voice replied, King is safe inside southern Court chamber command confirmed. Milo let out a breath. Good now. What about us? Leary smiled slightly. Now we wait, or we fight if we must. Just then the door behind them shook. The masked figures had reached the vault they were trying to break, and Milo looked around and saw an old tool cart in the corner. He ran to it and pulled out a set of energy clamps. He placed them on the door and connected them to a power limit. The door glowed, then locked fully. They will break through soon, Leary said as she picked up a metal staff from the wall. Milo stood beside her holding a tool rod. When they do, we stand together, he said. The door shook again, then stopped a moment later. The voice from the panel spoke again. Pals, guards have reached your location. Enemies retreating back up, arriving in 2 minutes. Leary lowered her staff slowly. We made it. Milo dropped the rod and sat down. That was the longest 5 minutes of my life. Later that morning, the king met them in the great hall. The attackers had escaped but left signs that tied them to houses close to Lord Siren. The king was calm, but his voice was firm. This was no mistake. It was a message, but we will send one in return. We will stand strong. He turned to Milo and Leary. You both acted with courage. You saved lives and protected the heart of this palace. I'm proud of you both. The council met again that day, but now the tone had changed. Milo was not just a guest, not just a bonded outsider. He was someone who had risked his life for the royal family. Leary looked at him as they walked in the garden that evening. You were brave today, Milo. I was scared every step, he said with a soft smile. Bravery is not the lack of fear, Leary replied. It is choosing to act even when fear is strong. They walked under the silver trees in silence. The attack had changed many things. Trust had grown, doubt had faded. The bond between them was no longer just from a glowing bowl. It had begun to form in the fire of danger and choice. The palace was calm once more, but Milo knew the peace would not last long. The attack had shaken everyone, and hidden dangers still lurked in shadowed corners. King Tovin had invited Milo and Princess Leary to a private meeting in the ancient library. It was a place filled with tall shelves of glowing books and old scrolls from long ago. Milo liked it because it was quiet and smelled of soft light and history. The king sat behind a large table covered with old maps and strange devices. Leary stood beside him, her eyes full of worry and hope. Milo took a seat, wondering what the king wanted to share. My son, the king began, using words that surprised Milo. You have shown great courage and heart. The bond you share with Leary is rare and precious. But there are things you must know to walk this path fully. Milo nodded, ready to listen. The history of our royal house is deep. King Tovin said, long ago, before the first Starwalkers built this kingdom, there were two great families, the House of Light and the House of Shadow. They were once friends but fell into rivalry. The bowl that chose you is a symbol of the Light families. Ancient magic. Milo looked at the glowing bowl he had seen only once. It felt strange to think it held such power. The House of Shadow still exists in secret. The king continued. They want to return and claim the throne by force. Lord Siren, whom you have met, is connected to them. His attack was only the first step. Leary's face grew serious. That is why your bond is important. You bring something new, something unexpected. The bowl chose you because the light saw your courage and kindness. Things the shadow fears. Milo felt a mix of fear and pride. What can I do? The king smiled slightly. Learn, train. Trust yourself and us. We will prepare you to face what is coming. But first, there is an old secret in this library. He moved to a tall shelf and pulled out a thin book. The cover shimmered with silver symbols. This book contains the story of the first bond between our two houses. It tells of a human like you who once came here in peace and changed everything. Milo's eyes widened. A human, yes, the king said. Many centuries ago, a traveler from Earth arrived in Thaler. He brought new ideas and helped end the war between the families. He married into the royal line, much like you, Leary. Reached out and touched Milo's arm. You are part of a long story. Milo opened the book carefully. The pages glowed softly as he read stories of bravery, friendship, and hope. The traveler had faced great trials, but his kindness had united the people. The king added, your path is not easy, but it is also not new. You carry the legacy of that traveler. Use it to find strength. Milo felt a warm light in his chest. He was no longer just a guest or a stranger. He was part of something much bigger. A story that had started long ago. After the meeting, Leary and Milo walked through the garden under the 3 moons. The silver trees shimmered, and the air smelled like soft rain. I never knew this history, Milo said. It makes me feel less alone. Leary smiled. You are never alone here. We stand together. Suddenly Milo stopped. There is something I want to ask about the bowl. Can it choose someone by mistake? Leary looked at him with gentle eyes. The bowl sees more than we do. It reads the heart. It cannot be tricked by lies or fear. That is why it chose you. Milo nodded slowly. Then I must learn to live up to it. Their peaceful moment was broken by a sudden noise. A messenger ran toward them with urgent news. The secret investigation into Lord Siren's allies had found new threats. A group of spies was trying to steal royal secrets. King Tovin called a council meeting that night. Milo attended, sitting beside Leary. The room was tense and filled with whispered fears. One of the royal guards spoke. The spies are clever. They use invisibility cloaks and false voices. We must be careful whom we trust. Leary looked at Milo. We need to watch the palace together. Milo agreed. I will help guard and protect. I owe it to you all. The king nodded. Good. We will train you in the arts of defense and diplomacy. You must be ready for anything. Over the next days, Milo studied ancient combat styles practiced by the royal guard. He learned how to use light weapons and how to read people's faces for truth. It was hard work, but he found joy in learning and improving. Leary was always nearby, offering encouragement and sharing stories of her own training. They grew closer, their bond strengthened by trust and shared purpose. One evening, Milo found a hidden room behind a bookshelf. In the library, inside were old letters and tools from the first human traveler. Among them was a small pendant shaped like a star. He took it to Leary, who smiled warmly. That belongs to you now. It is a symbol of hope and courage. Milo wore the pendant and felt the weight of history and promise, but shadows still lingered. Lord Siren's allies were growing bolder. Strange figures were seen near the palace walls at night. Plans were whispered in secret places. Milo and Leary prepared to face the coming storm together. The story of 2 worlds had begun again, and they were at its heart. The sun rose over the shining city of Thaler, casting warm light on the tall towers and sparkling gardens. The 3 moons had disappeared with the night, but their glow still seemed to linger in the soft breeze. It was a new day, but for Milo and Princess Leary, the future was still full of questions and challenges. Since the attack and the discovery of Lord Siren's secret plans, the palace had changed. Guards were more alert, meetings were longer, and the air was thick with caution. Yet Milo felt a calm inside him, a steady courage that had grown through trials and learning. He was no longer the stranger from Earth. He was part of this world, part of its story. That morning, Milo and Leary met in the crystal garden, where the flowers shone like jewels and the air smelled of sweet light. Leary smiled as she approached. The council will meet again today, she said softly. We must decide how to stop Lord Siren before he strikes again. Milo nodded. We have seen his plans and his spies, but we need proof to act. Leary looked at him seriously. I have an idea, but it will be dangerous. Milo's eyes met hers. I'm ready. She took his hand and led him to a small room beneath the palace. It was filled with strange machines and maps showing the kingdom's borders. There, they met with Tira, the elder who had taught Milo the language and customs. Tira, what is your plan? Milo asked. The elder smiled. We will use the old magic of the bowl and the new tools of this world, a trap to catch those who work for Lord Siren. Leary explained. We will send a false message through the palace channels. It will say the king is traveling to the northern towers alone. Milo frowned. But he is not going. That is the trick. Yes, Leary said. We expect Siren's spies to try and capture the king there. Instead, we will wait and catch them. The plan was set, and all prepared to act. That night the palace was quiet but full of watchers. Milo and Leary stood together on a balcony, looking out over the city. I never thought my life would be like this, Milo said. From Earth to a throne, from stranger to protector. Leary smiled. Your courage brought you here, and your heart will keep you strong. Suddenly, a soft beep came from Milo's whisper stone. A signal from the guards. Now, Milo said. They moved quickly through the halls to the war room where the king and council waited. The message had been sent, and the trap was ready, ours. Passed with tense silence until a group of cloaked figures appeared near the northern towers. Guards surrounded them quickly. There was a brief fight, but the spies were caught. King Tovin looked at Milo and Leary with pride. You have helped save our kingdom tonight. Your courage and wisdom will be remembered. Milo felt a warm glow. Inside, the bond with Leary was no longer just a ceremony or a chance. It was a true partnership built on trust, courage, and love. In the days that followed, Milo continued to learn and grow. The people of Thaler accepted him more fully, and even those who doubted before began to see his strength. Lord Siren was brought to trial, and the kingdom prepared for a peaceful future. One evening, as Milo and Leary walked through the silver forest, she took his hand. We have faced shadows and fears, she said, but together we can build a new dawn. Milo squeezed her hand gently. A new world, with hope and friendship. The stars above twinkled softly as the 3 moons began to rise again, casting their gentle light over the land. The story of Milo, the stranger who joined an alien wedding and became part of a royal family, had reached a new beginning. Together, they stepped forward, ready to face whatever the future held.